Okay guys, how's it going? It's pretty awesome. I'm impressed. This is the first one, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong? In Casey?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we'll get right into it just because I know we want to keep the schedule going. First off, I'm super uber excited, guys. This is my passion, and frankly, I love being around other people that are passionate about interactive development and obviously specifically WordPress. You know, for me, I'll give obviously a background and perspective on my career in this, and ultimately some really specific things that can help you guys and how to leverage WordPress as an enterprise level platform, and just really, you know, take advantage of just the amazing capabilities that it has to offer. First off, I just wanted to kind of get a feel of the audience. Let's just raise a hand. Who out there is more writing, kind of messaging people, blogging? Is there any writers in here, or is it mostly designers? Okay, designers. Okay. What about like HTML, CSS guys? Okay. All right. So what I'm going to try to do is kind of fit and hit all angles. Okay. Obviously, there's a ton of detail, and I know there's a lot of great sessions that get into really the nitty-gritty aspects. So I'm going to kind of try to give a little bit different perspective today as it relates to, I've been the CEO of 3 different companies. Turbine is the recent one that I co-founded about a year ago. And ultimately just kind of describe, as you're either freelancing or working in an organization or working with a partner or a team of people that participate in using WordPress, helping sort of help provide some insight and recommendations to communicate to those individuals, as well as things that you can be doing to leverage it more successfully. So again, my name is Jason Peterson. Again, I'm just a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in Lincoln, Nebraska. My background, I was a fine arts major at the University of Nebraska. Graduated in 2000, started doing interactive development about 1996. So I've been doing this since really the early stages of the internet. The thing about me that you'll want to know is I call myself, I'm a hybrid. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I've been a developer, I've done a little bit of writing, good at finance, very much an artist, love technology. So more or less, early in my career, I figured out that I was unemployable, and it was better that I started my own company. So needless to say, that's kind of my background. Is I kind of come from a different variety of angles. I do continue to serve as creative director of Turbine. Basically had a company before called Agilon, which was a kind of technology marketing agency, more traditional, but did a lot of digital marketing services for about 8 years. Sold that, worked in the agency environment, managed interactive services, and then ultimately co-founded Turbine. So a little bit about Turbine. Was actually started in 2005 by my partner, and we rebranded as Turbine in April 2010. Our core focus is really, strategic web development and technology marketing services. So anything related to digital marketing strategies. Obviously, website development is a big part of what we're doing. We're doing a ton with social media and relationship-based marketing strategy, video production, search engine marketing and optimization, smart and mobile phone solutions, and then we do a lot of consulting and results-based management based on the digital footprint that's created with technology marketing services. So, but at the end of the day, most of us know us as techie marketing folks. Again, right now, currently, we're what we call a virtual company, and I think a lot of you, for those that are out there that do, how many freelancers do we have? Okay, sweet. You guys have offices? You work out of your house? Okay, awesome. That's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed, and I think what's so cool about right now, guys, in my short career, the evolution and the empowerment of technology has made it so that individuals have the ability to contribute in ways that they never were able to do before, and WordPress is a huge example of that momentum that I'll get into later on. But more or less, that's what Turbine is more or less a virtual company. My wife here is Director of Client Services, and we more or less collaborate with development partners, creative designers, and messaging strategists all over the country. So we have about 75 people we use all over the United States to produce our solutions. And as a result of that, we really get a unbelievably cool perspective on best practices in the industry. Compared to my old agency, which had a gigantic brick and mortar, 25 employees, lots of overhead, lots of turnover, all that fun stuff you deal with the agency world, which is okay. So it's kind of a cool time. I mean, I tell people that, and if you know me, I'm also very progressive, but I love history. So I'm going to try to paint some context into what's been going on, because a lot of us, it's going so fast. I mean, I'll say this. As I'm going to talk about today, frankly, you know, I mean, in 3 weeks, what I may be saying is out of date. And that's the truth. So one of the goals of today, I'm going to try, I have a tendency to be long-winded, but get through this so that we can talk, because I love the collaboration. I was talking with the guys beforehand, and I think that's the key is, I love hearing the ideas and different things. So I'll try to preface that my recommendations on best practices are always subject to change. And we try to evolve and look into those evolutionary opportunities, you know, as quickly as we can. But more or less, again, we basically have done in my career with my partners and stuff, we've done over 800 websites of every size, shape, and magnitude. As I mentioned, I co-authored and architected a content management system in 1999 that ultimately went on to have about 500 websites serving off of this. Prior to the whole open source market really becoming prominent, I've sold all different types of content management environments, and ultimately this is what has led me to recommending and using WordPress as our primary platform. So I'm a newbie, I'll be honest. I've only really been using this for about a year and a half, but I'm just amazed at what its capabilities are and such. So think of me as kind of that guy that I guess I'm very non-emotional. I love technology, and I align myself with what's the best decision. I'm a PC guy who uses a Mac, who likes Linux, who works, has Android. I mean, it's whatever. I'll use everything. So that's really the premise behind our perspective at Turbine is we're not emotional about our decisions. We all, love our technology, love the companies that we utilize, but at the end of the day, our fundamental goal and objective at Turbine is what is the best solution for our client. And that's the bottom line, and that's to me what is so exciting about WordPress is it has that, it addresses a lot of the things that many of the other technologies I've dealt with over my career have not. So goals for today, again, as I mentioned, really we're trying to provide an executive perspective on the rationale behind using WordPress versus some other proprietary or even open source content management platform. There's lots of solutions out there. I mean, again, in 1999 when I started, there was nothing. I mean, at that day and age, it was, Front Page, it was Go Live Cyber Studio back in those days, maybe Claire's homepage. It's not stuff that was easy, and in other cases it was custom stuff. It was Perl, CGI, those kinds of things. So CMS is really a relatively new concept. And again, give context. Why is it WordPress is so awesome? I mean, at the end of the day, clearly there's some amazing things it provides, as well as all the awards that it's won from the open source and the content management industry. So we're going to talk about some of those things. And again, for us as a business that's scaling across the country, Turbine is endorsing and using WordPress as its primary platform of choice. We've already done 50 websites in this in the first year, and it's serious business for us. So for us, that's what it is, and I think, is cool and fun and all those things. I'm a designer by heart. It affects the bottom line, and I'm going to talk about how that has done that for our organization. And again, for you guys, I really want, I could sit here and talk all I want, but I want you guys to walk away with some key insights and advice on how you can be looking to take WordPress to the next level. Like I said, there's all kinds of detail on the best practices from a development perspective, from content management perspective, but really looking at it as a systematized solution on how to build your business, whether you're a freelancer or whether you work for a company. And again, thinking and looking at always, we're always concerned, and I use this term all the time when I sell to clients, is when you build a website, we had a tendency in our industry to get into this rut of disposable solutions. It's disposable technology. Go to GoDaddy, get a website, $300, throw it away, start over. That's not what this is about. To me, that devalues our credibility and our knowledge in this industry, and it has confused the clients out there. They don't understand, okay? So for us, you know, it's really, really important to, you know, help communicate and provide understanding to layman people that ultimately are our clients and the people that we're providing solutions for on the scalability of this, so that it's an asset. It's something that you're investing in that's going to appreciate, not depreciate, okay? That's really important. So think of every website, every technology, you know, content management solution that we are involved with in this day and age. We are doing a disservice if we are not looking at ways for it to scale, okay? WordPress rocks at that. So that's something we'll talk about as well. Okay, brief history of CMS. Show of hands, how many people have been developing web development for over 10 years? Awesome, okay. Well, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, so I won't spend a lot of time on this. I mean, obviously, this has been a very fast-moving aspect of web development for a variety of reasons. You know, obviously there's a lot of other moving parts that have moved this. Certainly the internet's a big part of this, certainly just the aspect of information technology, all these converging aspects, social media and relationship convergence. So, I mean, clearly, you know, the late 90s, mid to late 90s was the age of the webmaster. You know, it was the guy that was, you know, or the gal that, you know, had the keys to know how to make the change. Sure, you could kind of teach someone how to try use front page or something, but they'd break it. That was the bottom line. They didn't know how. And that's really how I got into this, where I said, wow, here is a communication conduit. Here's this vehicle. I mean, again, as a graphic designer who is an artist, and I love technology, now we've combined the skill set of creativity, technology, and marketing in one channel. And as most of you know, I mean, you know, there's the development perspective, the creative perspective, and the marketing perspective. Now, how many times do those things all harmoniously work together? Not very often. It's hard. It's a totally different skill set in one solution. So for me, because of my interesting way I'm wired, my dad's an information technology CTO over the past 35 years. My mom's a piano teacher. I get both. So that's what made me realize, you know what, this is cool. So that's when I was at the age of 19, I started my first company. Again, during this time, I mean, the open source community, clearly from a web hosting environment, with Linux, Red Hat, all the different flavors, Apache, that really is what started the momentum of open source utilization of technology in the web, and it made it affordable. It made it very, very cost effective. If I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think even in Nebraska or somewhere, somebody was a chief architect in the Apache system originally. So bottom line, the real challenge though, when we were building, Gravel was the name of our CMS. Frankly, I think the name sucks now, but whatever. The main challenge was web browsers were very, very crappy. I mean, if we think about it, you know, the original browser, Netscape 2, 3, 4, whatever, IE, they really we were doing things to those browsers that really weren't meant. I mean, it really was for just delivering some simple text and some images. To try create an application in those browsers was just like, you know, paving a path that didn't exist. So clearly the advancements of standards in HTML and the sophistication of browsers made a tremendous leap in allowing us to be able to do some of those things, as well as many, many others. So clearly, for us, like I mentioned, we really had a mature product in July of 2000 with Gravel. And as you see, a lot of other CMS, proprietary ones, people building them. I know a lot of the agencies, they would build a custom backend, was kind of their thing that they would do. And clearly, this is when you saw the rise of things like Drupal, Joomla. There's so many others, Expression Engine, and again, well, obviously WordPress. So to fast forward to today, clearly, and again, from my perspective, what has been just amazing is I sold proprietary systems, and I sold against open source for years, back when it was kind of what I would say somewhat unpolished. And ultimately, over time, I took a complete 180 degree to my philosophy. And again, I go back to what I was taught by my father, is you don't get emotional about your technology. Even though my bread was buttered by selling a licensed product, I could not ignore the fact that this open source movement was changing the entire paradigm of how websites were built. So to me, that's what's been really neat. And then, of course, now we're in this point where I call the term portable content solutions. I believe we're no longer in the age of web development. We're in the age of mass distribution of content and consumable content. You know, I'm a designer, and we're all designers, but right now content is king. Good content kicks ass, and it rocks the internet, okay? So to me, that is the manifestation of standards like RSS and all these other sort of mechanisms in blogging. It's created such a mass adoption that it has changed communication forever. So I always like to say that if we know where we're going to go, we need to know where we've been. All right? This is a quote from my father. And again, I always look to my dad. He's been one of my most amazing mentors, as well as a big influence in my career. He served on my board, has owned many different companies. And his quote, and I love this, he said, if the automobile had changed as fast as the technology industry, an automobile would be able to travel at the speed of light and cost $1. So that's what I mean, is the change that occurs, guys, is just, it's insane. And that's for us as, you know, we're the people that clients come to us and they're like, help me, help me. So, you know, for my personal passion, and as I hope all of you share this, is that it's so critical that we are good stewards of this, of the truth. I will talk about this later. Because there's so much. If you were to ask 15 people, 15 different ways to solve a problem, you'd get 15 different answers. So the idea of best practices in this industry is a moving target. Now, on the one hand, it creates a great opportunity, but it also creates a lot of pretenders. And that's what I love about this conference. This is helping develop knowledge and best practices. So I commend all of you for being engaged in that, because to me that shows a great deal of initiative. So again, I think from the executive perspective, from a bottom line financial perspective, what are the kinds of things that those people are looking for if you're choosing a content management system? How many of you are dealing with making recommendations to someone that knows nothing about websites? Okay? All right. How many of you have clients? Okay. So bottom line is the majority of those customers may or may not. Some of them do. You might deal with an IT director. You might deal with a marketing director. But in many cases, their perspective on what a CMS can do and frankly what WordPress can do is somewhat limited. So these again are just my opinions, and obviously subject to, there's lots of other things that factor in, but because of my experience in building a system like WordPress that was by no means as good, and then ultimately utilizing it, I have decided and I feel that the most important factor is ease of use, that user experience. Because if you can empower someone else who's a great writer to generate content, consumable content, that is value added for that customer, you are going to be able to affect the bottom line, which is ultimately, let's increase sales, right? Let's increase our communication channels. So ease of use is so important. If that's not there, well, the site ain't going to change, and if the site doesn't change, what's the point? Okay? Secure. Obviously, I preface this always by saying technology is imperfect. That's my father taught me that bottom line, no matter what you do, you can spend millions of dollars. I mean, we just saw what happened with PlayStation. They had their whole debacle with security. So at the end of the day, If people want to really hack something, they can. But I would say, with that said, I feel that because of the responsiveness of the WordPress community and the constant attention to development enhancements and improvements, I think has really lent itself well to addressing any security concerns that I've had. Flexibility. I think you know, from an executive perspective, WordPress provides such a tremendous amount of flexibility, and it does give you, I think, it doesn't have to, and I'll talk about this, it doesn't have to be just blog-esque sort of sites. Obviously, that's one style. You can use a lot of the different themes that are out there, but clearly, we've been able to do things pretty much about any sort of design that we throw at it, we're able to make it function. So the majority of the site designs, I tell people this, right now I would say maybe 3 out of our 50 have a blog. A lot of them have a news feed, but in many cases we're using WordPress more as a conventional CMS versus a blogging-based sort of CMS. Portability, absolutely. I think this is one of the institutional benefits of WordPress, is its flexibility in delivering content to different channels. Whether you're looking at the RSS readers, all the different things, you know, on your tablets, being able to deliver optimized interfaces that are skinned within that existing content to an iPhone or to a Droid or whatever the case is, definitely the portability of that content is probably one of, in my opinion, the greatest assets of WordPress, because it started with its roots. Because of its roots as a blog-based CMS, that content needed to be able to be syndicated. And because of that very factor, it allows for designs to easily be themed, be customized, and to be created. So you're no longer subject to this notion that you can be plugging this content into different deliverables. We do a lot of things with digital signage. So, I mean, again, think beyond the web. So we're doing some brick and mortar interactive solutions right now for a national player that does high-end muscle car and Trans Am restoration services. They have an incredible website built in a proprietary system, but they're using WordPress for a significant part of it, and I've got that adopted. And part of those components, we're automatically delivering all this dynamic content along with all the social media pieces right into a digital signage platform using HTML5, and they update nothing. So every time they go, and it's touchscreen interactive, so they'll put up a 50-inch plasma, whatever, at their big World of Wheels, or whatever the heck it's called, and it's using a lot of the syndicated capabilities that are built into WordPress. All of a sudden, we have instantaneous updates to content. It complements the website. It's interactive. It allows touch interface, which is clearly a big part of interactive development now, and it's syndicating the content. So that to me is the ultimate in crazy cool and frankly efficiency. Legitimacy. I mean, clearly, if you're trying to rationalize or trying to explain, if someone's not heard of WordPress, they're like, well, isn't that blogging thing or whatever? I mean, there's, to what I had read, and this, again, I've read multiple figures, but it's anywhere from between 1 million to over 1.4 million sites are fueled and taken advantage of by WordPress. So to me, this platform is going nowhere. Okay, it's a very, very solid, and it's going to be sticking around. Certainly the scalability I've already somewhat touched on, but the ability to sit and add additional services. I mean, clearly, the plugin environment has just exploded. I mean, that community, there's so many that frankly, you almost need assistance just to find the right ones, which I'll talk about. But clearly, the scalability aspect is incredible, and that's always something that is very, very important, and how you can recommend WordPress. And I think the well-rounded development community, my wife and I were talking, she's a writer by trade, and all the people I've got that use this, you know, I would even say we use WordPress for about 80% of our sites, and then our other CMS we'll work with is Drupal. And I would say the kinds of people that attracts, it's like this, it's everywhere. It's everywhere from a designer, to a writer, to a developer, to a hardcore application developer. It's the whole continuum. Guys, I've never in my career, nor has my father in his 35 years, ever seen a platform attract that wide of audience and be able to serve it well. That's really, really cool. So when you got the, you know, pardon the French, the real geeky IT director, you got the you know, the non-techie marketing messaging strategist, it serves all. So to me, that you've got this perspective that I think advances the platform in a way that is unique to any other content management environment. It advances it and it improves it because you're not just getting the techie ideas, you're not just getting the designers, and you're not just getting the writers, you're getting all of it. So that's awesome. And that's honestly a big reason why we've obviously picked it. And then to me, efficiency. You know, at the end of the day, for all of us, whether we're doing this for fun or for most, if we're doing this to get paid, efficiency is key. The creative process, again, I've been involved in the traditional aspects of creative services. It is what it is, right? You know, you're going to design a logo, it takes so much time. To design an interface in Photoshop takes so much time. But implementation is the place. The one place where we can provide more value and save more time is in implementation. WordPress crushes that. I tell people, compared to the other CMSs that I've been exposed to, Drupal included, that we've probably saved an average of 10 to 20 hours per design for implementation due to its efficient nature of how themes are applied and can be developed. So if you're ever trying to rationalize that, that means money in the bank, guys. And that means you're able to save time, charge a higher percentage, and still provide great value, and it's not as time consuming. So some of this stuff I've already kind of covered, but I'll just touch on this. Again, it's really specifically why have we decided to emphasize WordPress, and then I'll get into some ways that we have specifically used it that in turn you can hopefully glean from to help you as well in your development and utilization of WordPress. I mean, again, because of this community, guys, the number of development resources is infinite. And that is so awesome. It creates this collaboration that I've already discussed. It creates momentum, it improves it, it gets better. You know, if you're looking for resources, I mean, that's at the end of the day, you're really, to me, looking for in a platform is that ability to, you know, have a variety of individuals that are fluent in it. And I think to me, it's this combination of some of them are untrained, some of the best people that I know. I mean, for those out there, of the people that are doing some development, how many are self-taught? Okay, exactly. You guys, to me, that's some of the best web developers out there. You can certainly go the route of the very conventional software development, information technology background, but to me, problem solving and creativity is at the essence of web development. That's kind of the keys to being successful. So to me, I always say this. I mean, with WordPress Scout, Google's your friend. I mean, you can look up any conceivable challenge, whether it's a forum or a blog or some sort of post. I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, you're going to be able to find an answer to that question. So from that standpoint, and because of this large community, you have resources that, frankly, many other content managers just don't have that size of resource pool. From sandcastles to Tetris, this is a concept that, you know, again, going back to the dark ages of web development, I would tell my clients that back in the day, it was literally like, in most cases, like building sandcastles. Modules didn't exist, plugins didn't exist. If you wanted an e-commerce system, you either bought a $50,000 system or you built it. And you did that all the time. And that was just, for me, it was reusability just made a ton of sense. So clearly, we've gone from that age of web development to now where reusability of technology is ubiquitous. It's all over the place. It's the essence of what WordPress is. So to me, it's like using Lego blocks instead of granules of sand. So that's the other component I think that is really interesting, is you've been able to see this complete convergence, and I think WordPress has embraced that as much as any, in the sense that there are so many complementary modules, as well as then ultimately other third parties. Like how many are familiar with Dropbox? Okay. That is Turbine is entirely cloud-based. We're paper-based. We use everything in the cloud, everything. Dropbox is our file server of choice. I think WordPress is becoming the Dropbox of content management. That's, to me, where I see its ability. It's becoming so mass adopted that it's like, I have an Android phone and it's like all the little backup programs. Oh, you can back up to Dropbox. Sweet. These other third-party developers, and I mean, there's so many, but just to name a few that we've worked with, you know, obviously Constant Contact, Big Cartel, Eventbrite, Shopify, yada, yada, yada. All of these are developing standalone implementation plugins to work with WordPress. So now you've got a standard, and it's awesome, and it's not stagnant, okay? It's growing and it's evolving, and you have this other community outside of WordPress that says, whoa, this is awesome. We need to make our system work with this. So to me, that's the other huge benefit, is as you're doing this, not only are you taking advantage of the core and the features that are around it, but the possible integration opportunities of other, you know, proprietary systems that want to work with WordPress, because it's become so standardized. The other part that I think has been, in just a short time that I've worked with it, the WordPress core continues to get better and better. You know, obviously, for example, I know we were using, for those that deal a lot with the WYSIWYG stuff, which is obviously a big part of the editing component, we were using TinyMC quite a bit because of some limitations and some formatting challenges from some of our more novice users. But it was really cool, and some of the limitations on linkage to pages, and you know, there wasn't really a selector option to be able to easily select to go link to a page, and you'd have to copy and paste the URL and stuff. Well, obviously that got announced, I think, in 3.1, and that was a big, big advancement. They went, all right, sweet, no more plugin, get rid of this. So clearly, the core continues to improve, and that's that's always best practices. You want to leverage as much of the core, or as many. How many of you are using? I'm just curious, because we've, from a menuing perspective, I know there's the parent-child method with WordPress 2.5, and then obviously 3.0 and above uses the appearance section. How many are using the appearance method of menuing? Or do you even know what I'm talking about? Okay? So there's two methods of menuing systems, okay? Some people don't even know that. So if you're going in and you're looking at the pages and the listings of the pages, you can sit and select from the old mechanism what's a parent and what's a child, or you can use a new method, which is more of a drag and drop method, okay? Now, in my opinion, that's way better. So we've adopted that now as our standard default, okay, for all of the sites that we're working with. And that's an example of improvement in the core. And finally, WordPress is incredibly search engine friendly. At the end of the day, because of its roots in blogging, and because of its roots in syndicated content, it's easy to find it for these search engines. Personally, I didn't even get into search engine marketing, guys, till like 6 months ago, because I thought it was black magic, voodoo, junk. Because most of the people that did it were full of crap, and most of the people that would do it would promise things that were not obtainable. Or you had to do it illegally or unethically to inflate results. The beauty of what has happened and what has transpired is the search engines have gotten smart, Google specifically and the others to follow, and they analyze content. So, although keywords play a role, it's not near as much. WordPress, I believe, I can't remember the version, but it dropped its primary installation setup for keywords. And it had to do with the very reason that good content is what Google wants. So at the end of the day, most content management systems, I mean, if you wanted the most search engine friendly site, you wouldn't have a CMS. But WordPress provides, from my understanding and my research, the path of least resistance for search engines to find that content. Assuming it's not in Flash or something else like that, you can get to that content, and that is huge. So nowadays, search engine marketing, which is a whole other topic, you're able to access, and it's rewarded based on good, valuable content and videos, and usage of video content. Okay, so limitations. So these may be things that you've run into, maybe not, but these are some things from a platform, from a serious player here's the kinds of things that I hope over time can and will be addressed within the community. In some of the sites that I've worked with, I've done everything from Fortune 500 sites down to mom and pop organizations and everything in between. Frankly, I probably prefer the mom and pop stores, but we still do a lot with database integration and a lot with moving data back and forth from different systems and those kinds of things if the website demands that. It's not impossible, but in some cases WordPress is a little weak in some of those areas. Okay? So if you're running into some of those challenges, or if you have a very, very, very substantially convoluted or complex need for true integration, not just linkage to other resources, because that's not really integration, but truly having to have data move back and forth, WordPress is a little limited. Okay? Some people think this, and I would say I don't necessarily agree, but there is a community out there that believes WordPress should have not become a CMS and just stayed in blogging. They believe it's trying to be everything to everyone. And I've read a variety of articles on this subject. Again, I came into this not really with a huge emotional conviction about WordPress and gave it a really, really good look, and I completely disagree. I think it is incredible as a CMS, and it still has the ability to be great as a blogging platform. Now, that's just my opinion. But that is something that's out there that you just need to be aware of, that there will be some individuals that are more fanatic about the technology. They may share that sort of inclination. The developer yourself, if you are looking at customizing, obviously, the existing themes, using themes that are more blog-esque, in many cases, I know with our staff, every single one of our staff members, account executives included, are able to customize a basic theme in WordPress. And there's a variety of reasons for that. One is it builds credibility with our development partners, and secondarily, it's possible. Knowledge is power. That helps. When clients want something and they have a bad idea, you want to be able to give them a good idea. So understanding how it's set up makes those account service people much more successful. So, but if you get into more customized designs, and I'll show a few here if you guys are interested, you do have to have some level of sophistication to do a custom theme. It's not that difficult, but it is something where you do need to kind of know what you're doing if you're going to try move away from sort of the blog-esque sort of appearance. User permissions are a little bit weak if we get into really extensive member management situations. If you're wanting to have a huge members area with all kind of permissions and dynamic access points and stuff, it's okay. It can do that, but it does stretch it a bit in terms of what it's able to do. And then finally, this is something that we have currently not, again, for those, how many are familiar with the multi-site version of WordPress? Okay. So WordPress has two different ways you can set it up. You can set it up as an individual, just install, which is most people do, or you can use, obviously, the blogging capabilities at WordPress.com, or you can actually set up a multi-site, which is an actual self-contained installation that lets you manage many sites. It's now starting to get better. We have not been using that yet, so there are some things that we're looking and we're testing it currently, but right now with all of our sites, each of them are their own individual copy of WordPress. It's not ideal, but it is what it is for now until the multi-site becomes a little more mature. But one of the challenges is staging your revisions. Staging meaning if you're going from a test environment to showing a client to moving it live, it's either on or off. Okay? So we've had to do some creative things with DNS and domains and all that fun stuff and back-end implementations to make that capable. And even yet, we have to do a fair amount of database things behind the scenes to roll sites live. So definitely, you know, if you're doing 50 sites or 20 sites, that is something to consider. Okay? Okay, so tips, all right? And then I'll make sure we have some time for questions here. based on just that subject I talked about, I think it's really important to have, even at your disposal with this is still technology. You know, again, like I said, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. The number one thing that I've been using for the last 8 years, regardless, is to have a solid, knowledgeable, talk English IT partner, individual, that can take care of the back-end implementation challenges or any questions that may arise. Okay? So if you really get serious about it, okay, and like we've got our sites over at HostGator, is where we're at currently in Dallas. We have monitoring systems set up because, frankly, I mean, if it all of a sudden goes down, well, they're going to call us. So it's that kinds of things that if you get really serious about taking it to the next level, whether you're freelancing or whether you're looking at multiple site implementations within your organization, you want to be thinking about that. Okay? Have a base standard configuration. For kicks, how many of you have done, let's say, more than 10 WordPress sites? Okay? More than 5? Okay? So as you'll do this, you'll see, and I know for us, we're always learning. We have just adopted, after about 1.5 years, a standard installation core. We know what we want to use. We know what we want to customize. We kind of get rid of some of the feeds in the front. We might throw the client logo in the front or ours. There's some real simple things to just make that cleaner. But yet I would also say that I think WordPress has one of the greatest interfaces for usability. I think from the plugin standpoint, we have had, it's both, I would say. It's the area where you can just go bananas. I don't know, for those that are designers, I remember when I was young, you know, Photoshop had all the filters, right? So what do you got to first do when you start up in Photoshop? You got to try the filter, right? And everything you create and design initially is junk, because you got to try all the cool stuff. And then after you've got that out of your system, you're like, okay, now that I've tried all this filters and weird wacky things, now I'm going to use them when it makes sense. We use the term design with purpose. I'm not just going to put a mark or put a look or put a feel just because. That's a bad idea. It has to have a reason. Same thing with plugins. I mean, you could bomb your site with hundreds of plugins. That's great. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I think you need to always be trying to understand, read up, and I'll give resources on what are the core components providing that can improve what you're delivering to your customer or for your own benefit, and lessen the need, because there's a less chance things will break. And if you are going to use plugins, I lost a couple of clients, I'll admit. One in particular, over a specific plugin that was free. It was okay, but it wasn't quite what they needed. And it ended up, he got very frustrated, we had some reliability issues, and I lost him as a customer. So I learned very quickly that we had to be very careful about selecting the plugins that we use. So it's kind of like, just because we have all these Lego blocks inside the bucket, not every Lego block's going to fit. So one in particular, again, I'm not here to make a bunch of endorsements, but I know for forms, everybody deals with forms. Okay? And if anybody has ideas of others, by all means, I'd love to hear it. But we've used Gravity Forms a bunch. Everybody heard of Gravity Forms? Okay. Dude, that is a great formula. It's easy to use. It's supported. The licensing fees are very, very reasonable, but it's a paid plugin. And if you have a user that wants to get a little bit more, they don't have to know HTML, but they can create their own forms. It saves it into an area that can be downloaded as a spreadsheet. All this fun stuff. It's really, 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 it's a very good plugin. So that's an area that, and again, 99% of the sites are probably going to have some sort of form. There are certain forms that would probably outgrow it, but it is very, very good. So things like that, sliders, we've used a couple different sliders typically. A couple of them, one of them is free, and we have contributed to it. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then ultimately image galleries, you know, the typical things. I would say, you know, obviously we get into other stuff we'll assess, but we try to consider what is 8 out of 10 sites going to have, and then we know that and we use that every time we install. Now again, open source mentality is about the giver's gain. It's about giving to benefit others, and I love that. It's kind of contrary to sort of the cutthroat capitalism, greed does not, is the primary dominating factor. It's really awesome, and I think that it's really important to not take advantage of this. I mean, I know what it takes to build a system. I think my first CMS took 50 to 100,000 hours. It's a lot of time. And that CMS was a fifth of what WordPress is. So these people that are supporting this community, and all of us included, we want to make sure that we really support this community. And that is, when somebody's providing tremendous value, and you're using one of their plugins, first off, make sure you understand. I mean, I say read the fine print. Don't be stupid. You know, I'm not a lawyer. Neither one, and I'm guessing most of us here are not. So just make sure that you're using the technology properly. And when you can, and if you're able to make money off of something that somebody's doing for free, dude, throw them a bone. They deserve it. So giver's gain, man. I think that's really important. Read the fine print. Encourage and support this collaboration. I mean, to me, we need to keep this momentum going. I mean, this is the kinds of things, it's game changer. It changes, it moves boulders. I mean, it's the stuff that has happened with interactive and marketing communication technology. Guys, I mean, it's taken down governments. I mean, it's a huge, huge deal. And that's for me, like, I don't know what you guys think, but I don't feel like I'm just building websites, man. This is awesome. This is a big deal. We're part of an exciting time. It's you know, I tell people, it's like, for me, I read every single day a variety of blogs that are out there, both related to WordPress and communication and techie related. And it's like Christmas every day. New stuff, new things, cool stuff. So to me, we just have to remember that there's such an opportunity that we're able to do it, and I think helping others. And then finally, I think just be considerate of your best practices, but be open to evolution. If there's anything that I know about this industry that we all know about, is we know change will occur. Change will happen. That's inevitable.
5 minutes.
Okay. And finally, guys, seek truth. I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of perspectives out there. Soak it in. You know, allow yourself to understand different perspectives, understand different technologies. Just because we love WordPress, let's continue to understand what else is out there, so that we can ultimately have an informed perspective in making recommendations about why we, or our client, or our employer, or whoever should choose WordPress. And by seeking truth, that accomplishes that objective. Just a few resources I will mention. I will be posting this later today on Turbine's website. Our resources are back in the back, biz cards and flyers. It's thisisturbine.com. Twitter handle is @thisisturbine. Facebook, facebook.com/thisisturbine. YouTube, whatever, the whole bit. That's it. Questions?
Mashable posted an article on their website, I think 2 days ago. 54% of all websites on the web are done in WordPress.
That's an amazing statistic. I believe it. I read Mashable all the time and I miss that one.
What are the sliders? What did you remember?
I knew somebody was going to ask me that. It's uBillboard. uBillboard is one that we use. And I'm forgetting the second one. And I knew somebody would ask me. We have uBillboard, honestly, is probably, it's a free one that does about 90% of it. There's a few limitations, and we've used another one that's a paid one, and I'll post that. I appreciate the question.
Do you have any websites that you that really kind of goes through everything that's going on in the best plugin development that you kind of trust and keep following?
Sure.
What
Absolutely. I would say this, again, we're kind of in an interesting spot. I'll show you a couple, and our things are changing so quickly. We're going to be rolling probably another 10 sites live here in the next probably month and a half. So there's going to be a bunch of new stuff that you can be checking out. I will touch on one real quick so we can make sure I can get to some other questions. Here's one that was done here. It's optimized a little bit for slightly larger, but it's a travel agency, very, very high end. It utilizes a lot of the different components and aspects that I'm discussing. It's attempted to be very clean. A lot of these aspects are dynamic. We're doing a lot with using posts as some of the portable content components. As many know, it's always pages versus posts. Doing a lot with videos, doing a lot with social media aspects of promoting and communicating this, doing stuff with some different sliders. So I think this is a good one that I would say. We just launched this like 3 days ago. It probably does a pretty good job of demonstrating what I'm talking about. Any others? Go ahead.
You said you had 50 different clients. Do you have a wide range of traffic for most of the sites? Do you have any traffic problems?
Great question. The answer is we do have a huge range of traffic. Because of our decision with HostGator and some of the monitoring systems we put into place from a preventative measure, it allows us to be able to monitor our bandwidth and be able to monitor CPU usage and all those things proactively, and I have my guy that watches that. So if we ever reach like 50 to 75% of capacity for that machine, we get a trigger. So to me, you're dead on. Nothing ticks off a client more than something breaking. And we know that happens. It's the part about this industry that is what it is. So anything you can be doing, I'm like, if you're going to be serious, you're right. That's the kind of stuff. Now, those services are much cheaper than they used to be. When I had my company before, I mean, I was probably spending anywhere between $2,000 and $3,000 a month on just monitoring and IT support services to just babysit things to make sure nothing went down. Now we're probably spending $500 a month. Okay? Yes?
Do you, are most of your sites on dedicated hosting, or do you use shared hosting for your WordPress sites as well?
Both. I was going to say, based on what we do is we'll do an analysis. We use Google Analytics for probably 99% of our sites. Go back and look at the data usage on that old site of what it was before, do some projections, and that will determine if it's a dedicated installation versus a shared. But as I've mentioned right now, my old CMS was horrible at installations, so we had like 6 copies. Right now, we have an individual WordPress installation per site, for every single one. But as you mentioned, it is spread between about 4 different servers. So that's, to me, the part that's exciting, that, like I said, that we're just getting into, is the multi-site, where if you do get, I mean, as I was reading here in the last probably month or two, we're going to start testing that, just maybe potentially migrate some of our sites to that.
So when you just said shared servers, you were talking about sharing your servers amongst your customers, not shared hosting from HostGator.
It would be shared hosting from HostGator.
Oh, okay.
That's correct. Yep. So everything, and then in some cases, this is the other part that's been nice, is we do have some clients. I know I've got a communications company that prefers and wanted to have it in their IT environment. So I said, well, you just need these kinds of things, and then they're monitoring it themselves. So that flexibility is really awesome, because sure, I said, you know what, if I'm not going to host it, I just have to be very, very upfront about they're going to have to take on the liability of if something goes down, that's not my problem. But you can do that. And for those that maybe may or may not know, it probably supports best on Linux, but you can run WordPress on Windows servers as well. Yep.
Follow-up, do you use a content delivery network for most of your sites, or do you keep everything based on the standard WordPress installation using
We're getting into some of those things. The gentleman that's involved in our search engine marketing and optimization, he does a lot of mass publicizing of the content when we get more aggressive about some of the content that's being delivered. So that's a good question.
Starting from the beginning, like how the beginner should be able to, still in the pricing aspect of how much to charge clients.
Sure.
Like how, where do you begin and just for the time,
Absolutely.
for the timeline, how long it takes? And
I think what I do is I break it between sort of what I'd call customizing an existing theme, you know, the 2010 or whatever it is, or 2011 now, versus like a Photoshop file. That's a significant change and a significant value. So I think to me, I look at anywhere from, honestly, you know, I mean, you can do a site for $500, but I think if you're looking at planning, you're looking at strategy, you're looking at writing, and you're looking at customization, even as an individual, I think you should charge a minimum of $1,500 to $2,000 for a site. I think it's reasonable, and $2,500 to $5,000 is a very reasonable place to start. And then based on more value and more features, you can go up from there. Last question.
I'm sorry, were those numbers based on individual freelance or a small business?
That would be small business. I think the freelancer would have the ability to maybe charge less depending upon your overhead, but for us, we have very little. So I think it goes back to what's your financial margins and what's your objective in terms of what you want to make from a gross profit standpoint.
Timelines, 3 to 5 months.
Yep, 3 to 5 months is typically our timeline. All right, guys. Thank you very much.